Hello, this is Liam from Dr.Suess Personal Training, the founder of the No Shoe Crew, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about why we might want to use our single arm and single leg a little bit more than we do already. To begin with, I want to talk about two words: bilateral and unilateral. This starts off like a bit of a rubbish essay where you go, the Webster's Dictionary definition for, but I think that it's important that I get these phrases out, and just so then we're on the same page. So bilateral exercises are exercises that use two limbs at the same time. A squat pattern is a bilateral movement. It uses both legs at the same time. Unilateral movements are when we use one limb. So for example, a reverse lunge means that the main focus of that movement comes through one leg. That's despite the other leg going back and planting into the floor. If, for example, I'm using my right leg to do that movement, most of the work comes through that right leg. So we have bilateral movements and unilateral movements. As humans, we walk around upright. We are on two legs and we have two arms. But with that being said, we have a dominant side and we have a weaker side. For example, I'm right-handed, so my right side is stronger than my left side. This is fine. We're humans and we're meant to be a little bit asymmetrical. That's just how the body works. However, being too unsymmetrical or having too big of a difference can be a problem, because at that point we have two ways that this can go. Either the weaker side is put under too much load and gets injured because it can't handle it, or the dominant side is used too frequently, it can't handle the volume and then gets injured, which then probably means that that weaker side gets injured because now it has to take more volume. This is a problem because nobody wants an injury. So how do we solve that? Well, we make the weaker side as strong or nearly as strong as our dominant side, and with that we probably want to go to the gym. But then we get to the gym and we get onto machines and they are all bilateral for the most part. A leg press, you've got both feet on. A chest press uses both arms. A lat pull down uses both arms. Here we're running into a problem that our stronger side is probably going to end up taking most of the load. How do we solve that? And this is where unilateral movements come in really, really handy. So in this next section, I'm going to talk about the benefits of unilateral strength training. There's a lot of words there, but basically I want your single limb strength to increase. I want your joints on your weaker side to be as stable as your stronger side. And with that, the best place to start is using unilateral movements, basically using that single limb, using that single arm, and making sure that it becomes stronger. So to give you an example of some movements that are unilateral, any sort of dumbbell pressing or pulling means that that single arm is working independently from our stronger arm. Any sort of lunges are unilateral. Basically, that knee goes through flexion by itself and it isn't influenced by the other side. Single leg hip hinge movements are again unilateral. It means that we have to brace one foot into the ground and move our hips independently from each other. And these movements are hard because they require a lot of balance. They require a lot of focus, and people really struggle with them because bilaterally we might be quite strong in movements, but unilaterally, that was an awful word, unilaterally we become quite weak, and that's fine. But we need to recognize that these movements are going to be hard, they're going to be taxing with not a lot of weight, and that is probably a good thing because they're already weak anyway. Let's take, for example, if we're walking upstairs and we suffer from knee pain and basically it just gets tired and we start to feel pain coming into that knee as we're going upstairs. What I would say at that point is that that weaker side needs strengthening and that knee flexion needs to be strengthened. So if you think about walking upstairs, the knee is bending, what movement looks like that? A lunge. And to begin with, I would go with a reverse lunge. Now, with a reverse lunge, a really common fault that I see is that people start from the top, they come down, and the knee collapses inwards. So basically, your knee goes from a stable position where it is in between the hip and the ankle, and then as we come back and down, that knee shoots in, causing an unstable position. To fix that problem, let's add some stability around that joint. So basically, hold on to something. I like to use a studio bar to hold on to the ground, so then I have flexibility as to where I'm going to hold it. But anything, a wall, a chair, just something that's stable. Now that might feel like quite a big scaling back, but that's absolutely fine. because we need to start somewhere for that to increase and to get stronger. I went through a big period of using stability when training unilateral movements, and it made them loads better than if I'd have just tried to stick it out and not use some stability. At that point, then we want to make sure that our hip, knee and ankle alignment are set in place. Our knee needs to be between our hip and our ankle to ensure that it's moving correctly. If we work on things like that lunge pattern, it's going to mean that that weaker side gets stronger. It's going to mean that walking upstairs isn't as hard because that left side, for example, for myself, when my left side is weaker, my left side becomes as strong as my right side, and then I'm not going to run into problems when it comes to injuries. I also find that unilateral work actually works the core a lot more. Because we're having to brace and hold position while the hips are either moving independently from themselves or the shoulders are moving independently from themselves, we have to brace hard to make sure that we stay in a straight spinal position. So if you're looking for a stronger core, you probably want to put in a bit more unilateral work, because then that core is going to have to brace, it's going to have to hold, and it's just going to be in a better position overall. So just to go back over that, using dumbbells is a really good way of using unilateral work. Using stability is going to be a really good way to help us balance and make sure that we're in a good position. And then to finish off with, what I would say is for unilateral work, you want to make sure that you start on your weaker side. Therefore, you hit the same amount of reps on your weaker side as you do on your stronger side. So if I can only get 8 reps out of a lunge on my left side, I'm going to do 8 reps on my right side. With that being said, it might seem like we should only be doing unilateral movements, but let's talk about the benefits of bilateral movements. So when we're looking at bilateral movements, using 2 arms or 2 legs, it's fairly obvious we will be able to move more weight. With that, we're going to get stronger because the body adapts and it overcomes, and therefore we can move more weight, becoming stronger, becoming more stable. That means that if that right side is becoming stronger, by proxy that left side is going to end up being stronger, as long as we keep good position and make sure that that left side, again for my example, my left side is working just as hard as my right side. For the most part, bilateral movements are easier to do. They take less thinking about. If we were going to stand up and sit down, it's way easier to do on 2 legs than it is on 1 leg. So if we're coming into the gym and we're stressed out already, maybe one of the things that we don't want to do is put our mind under more stress by making it focus and hold position, when actually all we want to do is get in and move around a little bit. So those bilateral movements can be easier to do, and overall I would rather have people coming in and doing things than coming in, not enjoying it and then not coming in. It's also way less time consuming. To do a set of 10 squats takes way less time than it does to do 10 lots of lunges on each side. Actually, it's half the time. With that, if we're under a lot of pressure for time and we don't have much to spend in the gym, doing bilateral movements is a really good way of making sure that both limbs actually get some work, whereas with the unilateral stuff, we might find that it becomes a little bit too time consuming. Like I said, there's still a benefit to the single limb, even if we are working in a bilateral movement. As long as that position stays in a good place, then it's going to get stronger, it's going to be a benefit. So overall, yes, we can use bilateral movements to make our weaker side as strong or nearly as strong as our stronger side. So to round this out, what is my advice when it comes to bilateral and unilateral movements? Overall, I think we should be doing more single limb movements. I think they're vastly underrated, and they often highlight where we might have problems on one side in comparison to the other side. For every bilateral movement we do, we should probably do a unilateral movement. So if we're doing a bench press with a barbell, we then might want to do some dumbbell pressing. If we do a squat, we probably want to do some lunges. If we do a deadlift, it's probably worth doing some single leg hip hinging. Always make sure you're working your weakest side so it starts to progress. Yes, it's nice to be able to lift more with our stronger side, but there's no point on getting your right arm as jacked as possible if your left arm can't carry anything. So don't be afraid to scale your movements. There is no harm in coming into the gym and scaling it back to a point where you can do the movement. I'd much rather see people moving safely and correctly than moving and getting themselves hurt. If more people were to do unilateral movements, I think there'd be far less injuries than we see currently at this moment in time. It's not to say that bilateral movements are a problem, just moving around is great. However, this is probably a chance for you to reflect on, do you do enough with your weaker side than as you do on your stronger side? Hope this video's made sense. I think it's an important topic that I might have waffled through a little bit, so I apologise if this has gone on a little bit. If you have any questions about what I've talked about, because I'm sure there's some bits in there that can open up for more answers, please leave a comment down below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please give it a share, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I've been Liam, and I will see you next time.